Good evening, my viewers. This is George Ondek from Peekskill, telecasting at Peekskill Cablevision Public Access Studio. And I have a fellow Peekskill resident with me tonight, Mr. Frank Catalina. How you doing, Frank?
Good to see you, George. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, too. Frank, I know the views you have tonight are your own. I may agree with some of them, may disagree with others, but I'm putting that out there. But you're a Peekskill resident like me. How do you feel the city of Peekskill is being run?
Well, I think the city has a lot of problems, and a lot of the problems are not being recognized by the current administration. And I just think, that this administration has been in office for 5 years. None of the problems are getting fixed. A lot of them are getting
6 now.
A lot of them are getting worse, and it just, they have a lot of good ideas. They're nice, good-intentioned people. It's just not working, and I think it's time for a change.
But you're a businessman and a lawyer in the downtown area of Peekskill.
I am.
What do you think of how Peekskill is being revitalized? Is it good enough to suit your interests, or
the revitalization of the down, and I'm also a member of the BID. I've served
Right,
2 years on the
Business
BID,
Improvement
so I get to
District.
see it from that perspective as well. The revitalization of downtown Peekskill has been a tremendous thing to a limited extent, but most of the revitalization has been through grants, federal, state, county, and I think we need private investment.
That's
private
more
investment
money from the taxpayers, right?
in one pocket or another. It's all taxpayer money, and there's not a lot of private investment going on in town, and you can see that it's reflected because of things like the Paramount not being able to sustain itself, and now with the new organization, and it doesn't matter who goes in there, if we don't have residential development and commercial development, you're going to have the same problems, in my opinion.
In your opinion. Frank, have you lived in Peekskill all your life, or let's let my audience know your background a little bit.
My mother was a lifelong resident of Peekskill. My grandparents were from Peekskill. I was born in White Plains. I moved to Peekskill when I was 3 years old, and I lived here right up until when I got married. I lived a few years in Orange County. My wife unfortunately passed away in 2008.
Very sorry to hear that.
After a 25-year marriage, and I moved back to Peekskill in 2008 when my wife passed away, just to be closer to my business and my roots and the town that I love, the city that I love.
And you've been a successful lawyer in Peekskill how many years?
I've been a lawyer in Peekskill for 32 years.
And what kind of law do you practice?
I have a general practice of law. I have a large matrimonial practice. I had a great real estate practice until the market pretty much collapsed.
Right.
We do general litigation. I represent a lot of the business interests in Peekskill, and I have a lot of municipal and government experience.
There are some rumors in the community you might run for mayor of Peekskill. If you decide to do that, what would be your reasons why you would want to change the direction Peekskill is going in right now?
I am very interested in seeing a change in Peekskill. I think I have a message of change that can take place and would make a positive difference in Peekskill. I don't necessarily have to be the person that delivers that message, but if nobody's going to step forward and change the direction, I'm certainly not going to sit back and watch my town go down the drain. I'm just not going to do it anymore. Some of the biggest things that I've seen happen over the last couple of years is that Mayor Testa left about a $10 or $11 million fund balance. That's down, by more than half. When you tell a Target that they can't come into town, when you refuse to even meet with Target to discuss them building down on an empty lot, that has repercussions. The repercussions that you're seeing of that decision that was made 4 or 5 years ago, when Mayor Testa basically had it wrapped up in a ribbon and delivered it, by telling them no, the repercussions are what you find today. The budget collapse that we had this year, 30 positions, 32 positions being eliminated.
Wow.
18.
Would you
18 or-
repeat that? 30 positions?
I think it
or
was 30.
29?
I think it was 32 positions
And they
eliminated.
were all basically in City Hall.
All City Hall.
Mostly people who worked there for years, like in the tax department. I was in the tax department the other day for some help with my enhanced STAR program because I'm a disabled Vietnam veteran. You know what I was told? The hours are only 10 to 1:30, 3 days a week. Now our mayor 2 nights ago gave a very glowing position on the state of the city. Do you agree with her assessment of it? I know with a presidential campaign, the president speaks. Do you have a people's point
Before I
of
answer
view?
that, I wanted to go back
Okay.
to the last question that you had.
Yes.
By telling a target,
Yes.
by not even meeting with them, that has repercussions. By purchasing property like the Cartolemi property,
Yes.
without doing an environmental study, when you overpay for it in the first place and then find out that you're going to pay more for remediation than you paid for it without knowing that up front, that has repercussions. The
Frank, I heard
repercussions-
we lose 3 ways on that deal. $3 million did it cost, or $4 million? Whatever.
Whatever.
It was. Then you take it off the tax rolls.
Exactly.
Then you have a cleanup cost. And I understand, I may be wrong, that some kind of investigation was made into who leaked that information to the media from the mayor's people that are in City Hall.
Well, I don't know anything.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I haven't heard that, but I do know that people, when
That
you,
she had knowledge of that. I don't know if that's true or not, that it was contaminated property before she bought it at full market value.
well, I don't know what happens internally in City Hall.
Right.
But I do know the way people are treated at Common Council meetings because I get to
Yes.
see it on TV.
And I've seen you at the last 1 or 2 meetings. As you know, I'm a community activist. I'm a senior citizen on a fixed income. And when I see things wrong, I feel I have the right to go to a council meeting and speak out, keep taxes down, and I have a right to freedom of speech without threat of duress.
Or a
You wanna
time
sp-
limit.
Or a time limit. Did the Constitution say anything about time limits? Did our mayor and Democratic council ever read the Constitution and see how Congress works, where they filibuster? The Republicans just had a filibuster in Congress to try to change something. Mr. Smith goes to Washington in a great movie. Maybe the mayor and the 6 council people there should go see that to see how to treat people. Your comments, Frank.
All I know is what I see on TV, and what I see on TV is beyond controlling a meeting or controlling the time. It's an outright, I think it's just very disrespectful. And if I were watching that on TV, I wouldn't want to come to Peekskill to live, I wouldn't want to come to Peekskill to invest, and I wouldn't want my children to be raised in this environment. But I know Peekskill because I grew up here, and that's not the Peekskill. That's what you see on TV is not my town. We deserve better. I think the people are going to get better.
It seems like the mayor and the council that are in there now, and it's all one party, the Democratic Party. And I've got to be honest up front, I'm a registered Republican, so I tell where I'm coming from. But they're one party. Nobody said, hardly anyone says no when any proposals are being made. And you and I both remember historic Peekskill.
Right.
It seems like it's being changed into some artsy town, and I don't have nothing against the arts, with many taverns, restaurants, trying to draw people from outside of Peekskill and charging the taxpayers of Peekskill for all these grandiose plans the mayor and the council are setting up.
I don't fault anyone for having a grandiose plan. I think
Right.
we deserve a grandiose plan.
Yeah.
But at what cost? At the cost of turning down any reasonable development, any reasonable commercial development. We have a beautiful riverfront. So does Newburgh. Newburgh developed their riverfront, and they thrive. That's the only part of the city that's thriving, and it didn't ruin the riverfront.
Right.
I think we can do a lot of things in this town and still have a grandiose plan. But if you don't have fundamental expansion of the tax base on an annual basis,
Right.
you're going to run into the financial problems that you have had this year, and it just gets worse. The Peekskill celebration. You know, when you're sitting there with a horrible budget and you say, well, we can raise $40,000. We'll just charge the Peekskill celebration $40,000. That's something that sounds good back in October, but in January and February, when you have to actually go to the Peekskill celebration and say, fork over $40,000 if you want to have that celebration in Peekskill, and they find out for the first time, and they leave town, they close down the most glorious thing that happens every summer for the last 17 years, and we lose that.
What's that?
We sit the Peekskill celebration,
right.
and when we lose that, our quality of life is diminished.
We're celebrating Peekskill. That's the one celebration they shouldn't have cut out. Our mayor and council have a celebration every other weekend. And who pays for it, Frank? I think the taxpayers have been paying for the police overtime, for the DPW overtime. What about making each one of those individual vendors or whoever is throwing these events pay more towards the city, or make it pay as you go, as which the paramount should be. Pay as you go, Frank.
The economic benefit to having the Peekskill celebration here is incalculable. You cannot calculate it.
I agree with you.
And what's going to happen here is that the businesses, the restaurants that struggle to open up aren't going to have the Paramount this summer. They're not going to have the Peekskill celebration this summer. And I hear that the Italian Festival was asked to give $20,000 over to the city if they wanted to have their celebration.
Wow.
And they're walking also. So we're not going to have it's not official yet,
that's
but I hear
interesting.
we're not having the Italian
That's
celebration.
interesting. They're going to ask them to fork over $20,000.
That's the
But
number I
they're
heard.
talking about in a work session spending $40,000 for a work of art, a diver, who originally an artist told me that was donated to the city. Now the deputy mayor is saying, oh, they spent $20,000 building the base and the diver, and the artist deserves to get paid. I mean, you just mentioned we laid off 30 workers in City Hall.
32.
Right.
Or eliminated positions, or offered them early retirement.
Oh.
I call it the big brain drain. We lost the most experienced people at City Hall who
That's
are
true.
who are unprotected by CSEA contracts.
Yep.
So they were prime targets to get hit. And once it's something that sounds good in October when you're doing your budget, but when these people are gone, you find out you can't even keep City Hall open during normal business hours.
And how does bringing a methadone clinic into Peekskill under the Foster administration sound to you, Frank?
It sounds like a horrible idea, but I've been in politics. I was the city attorney here. I was the deputy corporation counsel for 9 years under Mayors Pataki and Vesey and Jackson. Not in that order. It was,
how about Kelly?
I was the corporation counsel under
John
Kelly, and I can tell you, based upon my political experience and based upon my experience as a city attorney, that when questions are asked and answered under oath, we're going to find out that there was probably a wink and a nod before that application was even put into the planning board.
And Frank, something you mentioned before, and I cut
It's just
you
a
off.
gut feeling.
I
I just want to, but something like that does not come into your city without a wink and a nod, and doesn't get approved by your planning board unless
You know about it.
Unless I don't know about it.
No,
but
the person who is in charge,
Oh,
the
yeah.
CEO of
And,
the city.
Somebody knew about it, and somebody gave a tactical approval of it, and you're not going to get a straight answer from this administration until they're in court under oath and ask the questions.
And do you know, Frank, the planning commissioner who let it sail through is no longer with us, Mr. Ruggiero. He went to another town. The head of the board, when he heard that the mayor is suing the board over it, resigned. I wonder why he would resign for.
What mayor sues her own city?
Right,
And,
and spends $300 to $400 an hour on a law firm to defend it. And if the law firm doesn't come up with enough things against it, we are going to get it. I understand the Hudson Valley Hospital has made a statement that as of July 1st, it's no longer associated with them. I'm wondering, does that mean that's the date Peekskill is going to inherit it? And one of the things Hudson Valley Hospital said, we don't want it anymore. It costs us $200,000 or $300,000 a year to have it there. So what, is Peekskill supposed to pick up those costs then? And the 300 addicts a day that will be roaming into Peekskill?
I guess we'll find out. We won't find out unless there's a litigation, and unfortunately, that costs us money. These budgetary problems, George, are so devastating that you're not going to see the full impact of it even this year. I think it's going to be worse next year.
Frank?
We have our most at-risk children paying 10 cents a day to use the Kiley Center.
Or
Again,
$10 a month or something?
It comes out to 10 cents a day. And it's just literally nickel and diming our most at-risk children. And this is the one bright spot in an otherwise blighted neighborhood. And I'm telling you, we're going to see the ramifications of that down the road.
Look at Mount Vernon and Yonkers in places where they don't do things. There's shootings and everything. And thankfully, there hasn't been many shootings.
I think the budget line item was the attempt is to raise $30,000 through these children. And you know,
Frank,
when you
let
have
me stop you there. I hate to interrupt you. But didn't we just hire a PR man?
I was going to get to
and
that.
There's some question whether it's 40 or 65,000 he's being paid to give out news releases for the mayor. Shouldn't a secretary to the city manager or mayor be, or maybe herself should be giving out the news releases?
When you have only bad news to give, I think you need somebody to wrap it up in a nice bow tie. But I can tell you one thing. If I have anything to say about what goes on in this city, this will be the last year of that PR contract. When you take $30, $40, $50, $60,000 and use it for that and try to raise $30,000 on the backs of children in public housing, that's where the line is drawn. And it's not a criticism of anybody, any firm. He's probably doing a great job. But the bottom line is that the mayor is elected, the mayor and all of those public officials are elected to speak their mind and represent us, the people. And what they're doing is they're torturing us. They're dry. I mean, they're nice people. They show up. They want to do a good job. But please stop trying to help us and step aside.
How do you feel the way the people of Peekskill are being treated at the city council meetings, Frank?
Well, I think the council meetings are ridiculous. And not only ridiculous, but it's embarrassing. I think we do away with the clocks. I think we tell the police officers to get back out on the street where you belong. I have never seen a mayor who needs protection from his own citizens.
Wow.
And it's quite an outrage, quite frankly. And like I said before, it drives people away from this city to see this open harassment and open persecution of the citizens. If I were advising anybody to run for mayor, or if I have to do it myself, I would just have one phrase, and it's, we deserve better. We deserve better than this. We deserve better on the finances. We deserve better from our city manager. We deserve better from our mayor. We deserve a common council that has the intelligence and the intelligence to stand up to a mayor when she's making a bad decision. I mean, they sit there. I have not seen a full complement of all council people present at any meeting in a long, long time.
Maybe some ruling should be put in about attendance for a council.
I think there is one. With a certain percentage of vacant, the position is deemed vacant after a certain number of absences. Nobody talks about it, and it's just a real shame. And we, the people, deserve a lot better than what we're getting.
How about a mayor and a council that doesn't listen to the people? If you were mayor and you had 2,000 signatures saying you didn't want something, and 1,000 other signatures saying you didn't want a methadone clinic, and 700 people who live in condominiums, and I know you live in a condominium, questioning why
Talk
the
about the
mayor
unfair
was
garbage
now
tax?
going to put an unfair garbage fee
Yeah.
on several developments who hadn't had them
We'll
for
get to that.
23 years.
We'll get to that. I mean, I pay it twice. I pay it on a multifamily house that I don't pay, my family owns,
Right.
and I live in a condo, and we pay it. It's just an outrage. I mean, there's not enough time in this show to go through all the problems in the city. There is enough time in this show to tell you that we deserve better.
The big problem is she doesn't listen to the people. When I vote you in, if
so
I
let me
were to vote
answer your
you in.
question. Let me
if
answer
I-
your question.
Yes, sir.
When I was the city attorney, my mayor and my council got nervous if 10 people showed up and had a complaint about
Wow.
something. Heads rolled, and whatever their complaint was, it was taken care of. When 15 people showed up, it was panic time. But I've been at council meetings, last fall where there were almost 300 people.
Sure.
Out the room, down the stairs, out into the street about the budget cuts. It's just
They've gotten everyone mad at them, Frank. I've been going to council meetings on and off for 20 years, but I only resumed about 3 years ago. When you have a mayor and council that don't listen to the people, it's supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But when you get people who get up there and talk down to the people, don't listen to them. They listen to them for the 5 minutes. Then she goes ahead and does what she wants to do, it appears. That's not right. And I want to get back onto an issue with you. Big box stores. Now, that's a terrible name for a store. Yorktown has the JV Mall. Cortland has the Cortland Town Center with Walmarts in it. Linda Puglisi has run that town for 21 years, and she's a Democrat, but she's run it like it was her own money she was spending, and her taxes have been 1% or less for 21 years.
she has no PR firm.
And she has no PR firm. And she doesn't have a celebration every other weekend and a ribbon cutting for the latest restaurant/tavern that's just open. What does that tell you about what's happening to people?
We need help. We need change.
We need a change.
And we deserve better.
And we need a two-party system.
Absolutely.
This has been a one-party system for the past 6 years, when you have a mayor and 6 people, all of the same party, saying, shall we jump? And the 6 people say, well, how high? And they all vote aye for everything. It's wrong. You need people to question things.
Absolutely.
And to say, no, you can't spend the money on this. No, you can't spend $100,000 and say to the people, oh, $100,000 is nothing.
Well, you might be able to do it if you weren't firing people. You might be able to do it if you weren't taking it out on children in public housing. And you might be able to do it if our tax rate was stable. But none of those things are happening.
And imagine what you try to do to us in condos. Try to charge us $15 per container at our condos. And we brought private people in at $7.50 per container. She was even trying to overcharge us on that, hoping she'd make a lot of money for the city to make up for these other failures and for these other grandiose projects. Do we need something from the Wizard of Oz, a statue down there now, maybe paying $50,000 or $100,000 for an artist?
Like I said, I don't think we need any art. We need art.
Need art.
We need those cultural
Yes.
things. But we need to restore the services, the basic services. We need to restore hours at City Hall. We need to get back some of the brain drain that left our city through early retirement. And I understand that some people have been asked to come back already.
And the Paramount should be made pay as you go. We shouldn't just give it away for $1 a year, give them all the utilities, give them a grant of $50,000, and then the organization that's going to take it over now has no experience in booking acts the way the Tarrytown group may have had.
I think if everybody listened very carefully as to what
Yes.
they proposed,
Yes.
and and just write that down or save it. Make a notation of what they proposed. And I believe they said they'd have shows starting this fall.
Yes, let's see
see
if
what
that
happens.
happens.
And let's
Almost every day they promise.
And let's see what excuses come up if they don't do it.
But Shakespeare in the Park, I know everybody in Peekskill isn't highbrow, you know. I want to see rock and roll shows. I want to see rhythm and blues, 50, 60, 70 shows like the Tarrytown group could have produced. But they say they're not Peekskill, they're Tarrytown. But they have experience. They went from 30,000 or 300,000 to 3 million in bookings, I think. Sounded like a good track record, but I don't want to be a critic of that. But I just hope a lot of city money still isn't going to go into the Paramount, that they make it pay as you go. What do you think about that, Frank?
Absolutely.
And a store like Home Depot, if we could get it along the river in Peekskill.
Well, you know, now it's tough because they go to other places. You're not going to, Home Depot's not going to build where they have one 3 miles away.
Think of the jobs that could have been produced. Think of how taxes would have been reduced. And think of all the other programs the mayor could have put in if she brought a store like that into Peekskill.
Or Target. If Target
Or
had come here,
Target.
let me just tell you something. If
Yes,
Target, if Target would have came in
Right.
within a year in the parking lot, you might have a gas station, you might have an Applebee's, you might have a McDonald's. But you get the initial seed anchor and everything else develops around it.
Right.
Right now, we would be having the benefits of substantial.
That's why.
We'd
Look
have
it,
substantial
I do a
tax
show with
monies.
Nick Bianco and a Mr. Paganelli from Yorktown. They're trying to bring in now a Costco with gas pumps and everything that would give people gas at 20 or 30 cents.
Well,
Imagine
if Yorktown turns them
Peekskill-
down. I hope
Oh,
Yorktown turns them down.
And I
Send them
second
down
the
to
motion.
Peekskill. Send them back to Peekskill, and we'll take them.
So, Frank, I know there's rumors around town you're thinking about running for mayor. Will you make that official statement tonight, or you're still holding that in abeyance?
I have
for a
no
while
official
now?
statement. You know, I have,
Okay.
you know, like I said, you
But
know, I
you
have
care about Peekskill.
I have no life. You know, my family has grown.
Oh.
I work and I go home and eat alone, and it's just a terrible thing. But if no one is going to step forward and do this, I'm not going to sit and watch my life's work, my investment in my career and my town diminish by 10 or 20% every
And
year.
as you know, the mayor's job is a part-time job. You're a full-time lawyer. Would you hire a professional city manager to run the city right?
Well, let me ask you this. If you were having an operation done and you're lying there in the operating room and they said, our doctor's not here today, but we have an acting doctor, would you, what do you think the answer is?
Is there, you know the law, is there any law in the charter how long a person can be acting as a municipal housing head or a city manager in Peekskill or anyplace else?
I don't believe there's a limit, but the real question is, what have you been doing for the past year or two? How long has this been going on? Where are you at in the search process to get us a city manager? I think that's really the question. Do your job.
Well, my viewers, Frank, I bet you can't believe it. This has been your first TV show, you told me. Although you appeared in court
I'm
many
sure I'll get the
times.
criticism. I'm sure I've done something wrong. But
Yeah, well, that's okay.
I thank you so much
but
for the
you
opportunity.
care about the city of Peekskill, and that's
More than
why
you'll
you
ever
came
know.
on. I wish you good luck in whatever you decide
you
in the
very much.
future. I've known you from a long time. You're a stand-up man, and you talk out for your city, and you wanted a better place with lower taxes like I do. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I thank you again. My viewers, this has been George Ondek with Frank Catalina, a political novice who cares about his city of Peekskill, and we've been telling you a little bit of what's been happening in Peekskill. More or less a people's response to the glowing terms the mayor presented on News 12 and other places about the city of Peekskill. Thank you and good night, as Edward R. Murrow used to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good job.